welcome. I hope everyone's doing great. This is episode 134 of Bicycle Touring Talk. I am George Schlacek,
the one and only,
and the one doing the talking. If you're new here, I'm telling you all about my past bicycle tours, where they went, what it was like, and the stories worth sharing. The current series is about a tour my wife Barbara and I did together in 2019. We started out in Bogota, Colombia, and worked our way north through sometimes really tough terrains on roads that weren't always safe. On January 22nd, after 2 weeks of riding, we reached the town of San Alberto. The past 2 days had been pretty tiring, riding through construction areas and sharing the road with big trucks on one of Colombia's main transportation routes. In brutal, hot sunshine. Yes, they call that highway La Ruta del Sol, the route of the sun. On the morning of the 23rd, we got up early, as always, and by 6 a.m., we left our hotel without having any kind of breakfast. We figured that we'd probably stop somewhere on the outskirts of town, but then put it off when we actually had the opportunity, because we weren't sure about the way back to the main highway, which was different than the way we had come into town. It turned out to be very simple, and once we were back on track, we were wishing we had stopped somewhere for a decent meal. After a few kilometers, we decided to stop at a guardrail for a snack and make our own coffee using our little alcohol stove and the instant coffee we had been carrying with us all along. Anyways, we left San Alberto without having breakfast or coffee. And we just did about 20 some odd kilometers here without an empty stomach, so doesn't seem to be a lot of restaurants on our side, so we just decided to stop and have a snack here, and we're cooking coffee as well. Buen dia. It didn't take long for the weather to get really hot. The road was now twinned, which made it a lot safer to ride, even with big trucks passing us frequently. They were able to leave us just so much more space, which made a huge difference. We'd been a bit worried about steep grades that morning, as we had seen very tall mountains ahead of us the previous day, but aside from some rolling hills, the ride continued fairly easy, with those mountains remaining in the distance, mostly to our right. The next major town was Aguachica, but the total distance there was about 70 kilometers. Barbara wasn't sure if she was able to ride that much in the scorching heat, so we hadn't decided on how far to go. We were just gonna play it by ear. There was very little shade along the way, and the temperature had to be in the high 30s on the Celsius scale, which would be close to 100 Fahrenheit. We were seeking out shady spots for small breaks and stopped for drinks more than once. Eventually, we passed a toll booth and then found a very nice highway rest area where we stopped for our lunch. After that, we were basically ready to look for a place to spend the night. Why carry on much further in the sweltering heat? We found an older motel near the Morrison military base. It was a bargain as the room had air conditioning and was large enough to accommodate both us and our bikes comfortably. There was also a restaurant on site, run by the same family. We first took some time to relax in our room and later went for supper, which led to a good and long conversation with the mother and son team that was running the place. We hadn't taken a rest day in a while, so we decided to ride into Aguachica in the morning, which wasn't really very far, get a place early, and spend the rest of the day. Arriving early at a hotel doesn't always work.
Buenos dias.
We woke up to surprise.
We woke up to what?
A little surprise.
Yes, we did.
Tire flat, 3 punctures.
Well, the next morning started out with a flat tire on Barbara's bike, but in order to ride in the cooler morning air, I just popped in the spare tube and put the punctured tube aside. We still ate a good breakfast at the restaurant, which was almost like hanging out with new friends. We had just about 30 kilometers into town, which went really well. For second breakfast, or early lunch, we found a little restaurant in town that was run by young people and surprised us with amazing gourmet-style food at an exceptional value. Now it was about noon. Aguachica was a very busy little town. We went to the local main park and tried connecting to Wi-Fi.
Any luck?
But it wasn't working too well as there were several other people already using it. After some time riding around and checking out some stores, we finally found a nice looking hotel that had a room ready for us for a good price. This place literally had a hot solar powered shower from the black plastic tank on the roof. There's also a pool, but we didn't end up using it. Instead, I spent some time patching 3 punctures in our spare tube that had been flat earlier that morning. Good thing the room had a standard toilet tank. Later, we walked into town for supper and ice cream for dessert. Then we bumped into a cultural center. It was interesting to find out about the history of the town, where they had used a zip line in the early days of the 20th century to bring supplies into town. The name Aguachica, as some of you may have guessed, comes from the nearby river, the Little Water, when compared to the Magdalena River that was valuable for the local population for growing their food. We learned a lot about the area and its history. arriving in Aguachica, we had not been sure whether to spend an extra rest day or not. We decided late in the evening that we were going to move on, again not really knowing how far. We had just over 400 kilometers left to reach Santa Marta, and only one more week in the month of January, with our departure back to Canada booked for February 21st from Bogota. That wouldn't leave us a lot of time for the beach. I'll tell you all about how the ride went on when I come back next week with episode 135. Hey, please support this series by hitting the like button. I'm hoping you're actually enjoying this journey, as it takes quite a bit of effort to put it together from footage that is already 4 years old and definitely not as complete as it should have been. Bicycle touring is challenging enough on its own, and remembering to turn on the camera when it really counts is a skill that takes time to develop. You will inevitably miss some of the best moments, but whatever is left is still worth sharing. I'll see you next time.